Everybody, this is Misfit from Tap the American Patriot. Anyway, this is something that I put on the Facebook page, and I felt like after the incident this past Valentine's Day, it's time that I put it up here so that it's easier for people to access and to share, distribute, whatever. As most of you know, I tend to not have things pre-scripted out, but that's going to change for this. I got paper after paper after paper of something that I've got to get that I feel needs to be brought up and discussed. So I just did this to make sure that you know, nothing was skipped over. And you guys know, as much as I like to make eye contact, this is one of the things I'm going to be buried in this paper. So bear with me. But this is about gun crime and statistics within the United States. And again, it's just something that needs to be brought up because there's so many wrong things out there being taken as fact, and I felt like it's time that they were addressed properly. So anyway, I'm going to read it verbatim. Bear with me. This is one of the few times you'll see me with a prepared script instead of my general conversation pieces. This is in regards to the judge who stated that the Second Amendment does not cover weapons of war. Now, common sense would imply that the First Amendment does not cover the internet, cell phones, or anything other than a printing press, paper, and quill. Another fun tidbit is that the Second Amendment was written to allow the same weaponry the military had to include things such as the puckle gun, which would be considered automatic, being that it is a chain gun and provided the layout for the Gatling gun, better known as the minigun. Now, let's go into this and talk about why this is insane. United States versus Miller in 1939. On May 15, 1939, the Supreme Court, in an opinion by Justice McReynolds, held that the National Firearms Act, as applied to one indicted for transporting in interstate commerce a 12-gauge shotgun with a barrel less than 18 inches long without having registered it and without having in his possession a stamp affixed written order for it, as required by the Act, holds that 1. It is not unconstitutional as an invasion of the reserved powers of the United States, citing Slazinski versus United States 300 U.S. 506 and Narcotic Act cases, paragraph 307 U.S. 177. 2. It is not violative of the Second Amendment of the Federal Constitution, paragraph 307 U.S. 178. The court cannot take judicial notice that a shotgun having a barrel less than 18 inches long has today any reasonable relation to the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia, and therefore cannot say that the Second Amendment guarantees to the citizen the right to keep and bear such a weapon. They're talking about a sawed-off shotgun. In the absence of any evidence tending to show the possession or use of a shotgun having a barrel less than 18 inches in length at this time has some reasonable relationship in the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia, we cannot say that the Second Amendment guarantees the right to keep and bear such an instrument. Certainly, it is not within judicial notice that this weapon is in any part of the ordinary military equipment or that its use could contribute to the common defense. Now, let's look at the definition of assault rifle. Webster's definition of assault rifle. Any of various intermediate-range, magazine-fed military rifles such as the AK-47 that can be set for automatic or semi-automatic fire. Also, a rifle that resembles a military assault rifle but is designed to allow only semi-automatic fire. The second form of this definition is entirely false because the definition has already been made that an assault rifle is a firearm with a selector switch that allows for the use of fully automatic fire. This means that to then say it includes things that resemble it yet do not function in that form is a complete and utter fallacy. While it may be the meaning in common usage, it is only that due to a media-forced agenda with no supporting evidence whatsoever. I cannot throw a spoiler on a Mazda Miata and then all of a sudden say I have a NASCAR race car. That's not how that works. Now, current United States population as of 2014 was 318.9 million people. This means that the United States is the third most populated country in the entire world. The only two countries with more people than us are India at 1,266,883,598 and China at 1.357 billion as of 2013. This means we'll have more of everything in regards to the amount of deaths per any particular reason, suicide, accidents, homicides, etc. Now, why is this important? Most anti-gunners enjoy using the amount of gun deaths within the United States as the foundation for their argument. Let's break it down and look at the facts behind what has them so upset. As of right now, by the data provided by several websites to include Wikipedia and 538.com, the United States is averaging around 33,000 deaths per year due to firearms, or 10.6 per 100,000 if you round up. Any normal person would look at these and think that there's an epidemic going on by looking at those numbers. As I've learned over time, liberals tend to rely solely on the media to provide them with factual information, which they have failed to do for decades. What the media also fails to do is they fail to break down the statistics into what types of fatalities. If one looks at the types of deaths from firearms, it is blatantly obvious that we do not have a gun violence issue in the United States because suicide makes up nearly 2/3 of all gun deaths. This leaves us with 1/3, roughly 12,000 gun homicides a year, with the remainder being classified as accidents or undetermined. While the common denominator in all of these cases is a firearm, the reasons for these deaths is entirely different, which means the solution must be as well. The top 10 causes of death in the United States as of 2014, directly from the CDC. Heart disease at 614,348, cancer at 591,699, chronic lower respiratory disease at 147,101, accidents or unintentional injuries at 136,053, stroke or cerebrovascular disease at 133,103, Alzheimer's disease at 93,541, diabetes at 76,488, influenza and pneumonia at 55,227, nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, and nephrosis at 48,146, and intentional self-harm, aka suicide, at 42,773. As of 2014, the United States was the 11th highest country in regards to gun deaths per 100,000. This is including suicides, coming out to be 10.54 gun deaths per 100,000 exactly. Now, if you were to remove suicides, because let's face it, even if they can't have a gun, a truly suicidal person will find another way to end their life, that number drops by a huge margin. Now, let's look at the top 5 deadliest cities within the United States per Wall Street. They are as follows: St. Louis, Missouri, Baltimore, Maryland, Detroit, Michigan, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Birmingham, Alabama. That last one actually surprised me a little bit, but as I did my digging and my homework, I found out that 89% of the population consider themselves Democrat, per Movoto.com. And for those who don't know what Movoto.com is a website that allows you to go and look at the demographics of a city or an area based on politics to see if you would be a good political fit for that area. Because obviously, if you are a diehard Democrat or a diehard Republican, you probably would not want to live in an area where people around you think differently than you politically. Everybody likes those echo chambers for whatever reason. Now, what do all these cities have in common? They're predominantly Democrat and tend to have liberal policies and politicians within their respective jurisdictions, to include gun laws. This is more evidence that suggests that the mindset of a Democratic anti-gunner is flawed. Now, if you remove these 5 Democrat-controlled cities, the United States drops down to around 5th from the bottom in murders per 100,000. One could go on to speculate and say that cities like Chicago and D.C. have a high rate of gun violence due to the surrounding areas having poor gun restriction. These firearms then make their way into the area and cause problems. Now, how does this relate? Why can't we be like Great Britain? And why can't we be like Australia? Well, number one, we broke away from them for a reason, and it sure as hell wasn't to be more like them. 2, Great Britain and Australia are essentially islands, meaning that they are surrounded entirely by water. Now, with the United States, we have this country to the south of us called Mexico, which is overrun with drug cartels that run not only drugs, but firearms and human beings. To think that firearm trafficking would decrease is absurd. The great thing about this argument is that it literally uses the left's own surrounding areas foundation against them. Even if Mexico was to stop all of its gun trafficking, there are dozens of other countries south of them that can easily bring illegal firearms here, and some already do, Guatemala. Therefore, any point they make is null and void based upon their own argument and a little fact-checking. All in all, this proves that the United States does not have a gun violence problem, but there does seem to be a lot more per 100,000 in Democrat-run cities than Republican-run cities, meaning they, by sheer relation, are more dangerous than a Republican. In short, a Democrat is more dangerous than a firearm. And all of that stuff there, I would list it off where I got my information from. You're more than welcome to check behind me. You're more than welcome to go behind me and tell me I'm lying. Tell me I'm wrong. Please, do it. I would love to see something other than, well, MSN said this, or CNN said that, or Yahoo said this. That's directly from the source, y'all. That's from the horse's mouth. So, with that in mind, those are the facts. That is the relation and the reality of it all. So, there you go. Now, why do we have gun violence problems today? There's several factors that I think play into it. We had firearms in schools 30, 40 years ago, rifle teams. I was on the shotgun team back in, I graduated in 2008. I was a state champion or a state competition shooter for, shotguns and everything else. And even then, school shootings were almost unheard of. You had Columbine back in the 90s and everything, but that's another point. But how come back when it was normal to have these rifle teams, there were no school shootings? How come? What changed? And personally, I think it's a breakdown of family units, and this isn't anything against single mothers and single fathers. Look, if y'all can do it, man, kudos to you, props, because my daughter runs me and my wife ragged. So I can hardly imagine trying to do it with just one of us. But there's just been a big change in the way that people perceive things. These kids today have no self-respect. They've got no respect for other people, other people's belongings, their lives. These kids, they just have no empathy at all. They are so self-absorbed that they think the world revolves around them and that the world owes them something. They can't handle rejection. Well, I hate to break it to these kids, but the world's going to reject you. You're going to get rejected for cars. You're going to get rejected for homes. You're going to get rejected for a loan. You're going to get rejected for a job. The world's going to reject you. You're going to get rejected by the people you're trying to get with. If you're, straight male and you're trying to get with a woman, I promise you're going to get turned down. Same thing for straight women. Chances are you're going to get turned down. Gay men trying to get a boyfriend, you're going to get turned down. It's just, that's how it is. You have to be understanding that the world is not going to just accept you and take you for what you are. Not everybody wants you. Not everything wants you. And these kids today just have a hard time understanding that. So I think that plays into it a lot. And there's just so much more going into it. It's just somewhere along the line we dropped the ball as a society. Because firearms have been a part of this nation since before it was even founded, over 230 years ago. So I'm trying to figure out what happened, because we've had them this long and they're just now becoming a problem. And you can tell these folks, look, if you take the firearms away, they're just going to find something else. Thursday, which would have been, February 15th, 2018, 2 brothers were arrested getting ready to bring bombs into school to blow the school up. It just proves my point that it's not a firearm problem. It's a problem with the mindset of these people and these kids. But anyway, that's my spill on it. I appreciate you guys for sitting and listening. Hopefully somebody will learn a little something from this. Y'all have a good one. Stay safe. And as always, Semper Fi.